students, or a few students. It's very important. I'm really glad to see you all made the effort to come tonight. You're going to get a lot of information. Just for kind of get an idea of who I'm working with tonight, how many parents have students in 9th grade? A couple 9th graders? Perfect. How many have 10th graders? Some 10th graders, and how many juniors? Primarily juniors. Perfect. Okay, well, tonight we're going to be going over several things, okay? The importance of starting early, a little bit about Naviance, academic planning, making up a standardized testing plan, extracurricular activities, college visits, the application process, and we're going to touch a little bit on financial aid. That is not an area of my expertise, or actually anybody really in guidance per se. We leave that to a professional. There will be a financial aid night in November of next year. So really would encourage you guys, and the entire evening is devoted to financial aid, to scholarships. We have local scholarships. So again, that's going to be much more in depth later, or certainly at the start of next year. The importance of starting early. It's less stressful. Having had 2 children go to college, I can attest to it is a very stressful process. And the sooner you start, whether you're a freshman or a sophomore or a junior, when you hit the college application process your senior year, it's stressful. And your son and daughter is under a tremendous amount of stress. My son just graduated from college a couple years ago. I have a daughter who's a senior in college, and it was overwhelming. And having gone through it the first time, I'm just here to tell you, sometimes the body snatchers come and they take your son or daughter for a little while, but they do bring them back. And just so you know, again, having an open dialogue about finances. Okay, it's really important that your son or daughter has an idea of financially, what are you looking at as far as college? Are we looking at a community college to start? Are you looking at a 4-year school? Some parents have planned since they were little babies and have those 529Bs, and the money is already set aside. That's really important for your son or daughter to know. Sometimes we'll have a student that applies to several schools, really good schools, some Ivy League schools. They get in, and it's $60,000 a year. And they're heartbroken because their parents say, hey, listen, we can't afford this. So these are conversations you want to have now, okay? And I know it's a sensitive topic, but again, in fairness to your child, they really need to know kind of where you're at and what's available. A lot of students sometimes start at community college and start there for a year and then transfer. Also, being more informed kind of leads to a better experience, certainly. The more information you have, the sooner you get it, the more informed a decision you can make. And it's important to be realistic, okay? Because some kids want to, certainly now with March Madness, they want to go to, whether it's Villanova or Clemson or whatever the teams are in, they kind of, sometimes that guides their decision. Or they want to go out west, you know, or they want to head south. But also be supportive. And I want to tell you a little story about my son. When he applied to college, he was a baseball player and he wanted to play ball, so we did the whole thing where we went around and we looked at colleges. He tried out in different camps, and it was his senior year. We were going into senior year, and it was Labor Day weekend. So we had visited a couple colleges. He had looked at some baseball schools. He'd done his SATs, but really hadn't started much kind of beyond that. And we were going to have like a Labor Day picnic. Like I said, it was his senior year. So I said to my husband, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab some corn on the cob. And we were going to, you know, our last kind of Labor Day picnic with him. You kind of start in your minds like the last this, the last that, their senior year. So I go to the store. I run into a girlfriend of mine, and our boys played baseball together. And she said, hey, how's Kevin doing? How's his application going? I said, you know, we're doing okay. We've visited a couple schools. He's not sure what he wants to do yet. And she said, how about the SATs? I said, well, he's going to take them one more time. And she was kind of asking me all these questions. And so then I was being polite. And after I kind of told her all about what we weren't sure of and what we didn't know and what we didn't do, she said, well, how about you? Where are you guys? And she goes, we're done. We're all done. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just couldn't believe it. And I was in the grocery store and I went around the corner. I was like, they're done. I couldn't believe they were done. It's Labor Day weekend. All her applications were in. Her son's applications were in. And I kind of think she did a lot of them, to tell you the truth. But anyway, all the applications were in and they were done and they were just ready to, you know, kind of waiting. So I drove home and I pulled into the driveway. And you know that movie Home Alone? And when she yells Kevin at the top of her lungs? I pulled in and I went, Kevin! And he came down and I just let him have it. And I was like, did you do this? Did you do that? How about this? Did you? And it was a horrible way to start. I wasn't in guidance at the time, but I really think that even if I wasn't, I'm his mom, and I would have just, panicked and kind of freaked out. And so again, we had a horrible Labor Day picnic. He whipped a water bottle in the garage. He's like, I'm not going to college. I'm like, so that's something you don't want to do. Okay, if I can give you a little bit of advice, your son and daughter is under a tremendous amount of stress, but I also want to let students know, hey, your parents are under a lot of stress. They want to make sure you make a good decision. They want to make sure that you're happy. This is it's an expensive decision. So again, we kind of made up. He said, listen, Mom, don't ask me about it every 3 days. I've got school going on, I've got AP this, honors that, or I'm trying to take the test. So we made a deal. I wouldn't say anything to him, but we would go out to breakfast. And I thought if we were in a diner somewhere, things would kind of keep calm and I wouldn't kind of go after him and he wouldn't be disrespectful to me in public. And we kind of said, hey, listen, every 2 weeks, you and I go out to breakfast, we'll touch base, we'll have a conversation. I get to ask you, whatever I want to ask you about college, and you need to kind of tell me where you're at, where your essays are, how many schools you're applying to, kind of clue me in. But I was happy that he was kind of taking the lead on this, and that's really what I want to kind of say to parents. Your sons and daughters should be kind of in charge to a certain extent. Maybe scheduling campus visits, okay? Reaching out to the guidance counselor, knowing their password when they create an account, whether it's applying to an EDOC school or a Common App school. This is all information they need to know. Again, students should be taking the lead, and actually being organized in this process is really important. Now with these cell phones, you guys can go and take pictures on college campuses, get an idea. We have some handouts where you can kind of lay it out by, some kids want to go to a city school, some kids want to go somewhere rural, some kids want to go west. When you get to these campuses though, lots of times they all look the same kind of online, and then when you get there, it's got a completely different feel to it. So if you can be as organized as you can about it, take notes while you're there, that's really going to be helpful moving forward. The most important thing to remember though, and before we start anything, the most important factors in college admission are your grades and your college prep classes and your curriculum, the academic rigor, okay, what courses you're taking. Those are the two most important things. Short of SATs and GPAs and all that kind of stuff, what colleges really focus in on are the grades and kind of what you're taking. Honors classes, CP classes, advanced classes. There's a lot of good schools that students can go to if you're taking advanced or CP classes. Obviously, it kind of opens up a little bit more and more competitive with honors and AP courses, but I don't want kids to be discouraged about that. We have a program here called Naviance. And freshmen and sophomores get an exposure to Naviance in their CDL class and Fin Lit class. Look at careers. We go a little bit more in depth as they become juniors with the college piece. But again, it can determine strengths and interests. They do a career interest profiler and actually looking at job outlooks, okay? So those are things we do with them as freshmen. They have this account all the way through high school. You can access it. Ask for their username or password. It's what they log on to every day when they have their Chromebooks. You can spend hours on Naviance. I can't really say enough about it and how helpful it is. We have statistics from the Occupational Outlook Handbook, Department of Labor, with jobs, information there. Also, once you hit junior and senior year, okay, research colleges on Naviance, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And we take your students' SAT scores or PSAT scores and their GPA, and we can kind of place them on a scattergram to see whether something would be a good fit for them academically. We have over 10 years of data on Voorhees kids. So we have College Board where you can enter all this information, but Naviance is specific to Voorhees High School here. And again, the data that we have really kind of gives you an idea of what would be a good fit for your son or daughter academically. Also look at majors, they can check those out, and manage deadlines for college admissions. Deadlines are really important. They're kind of hard and fast, and it's really important for students to understand. Sometimes in high school, you have a paper due on Friday and you don't have it, and you ask your English teacher, hey, can I turn it in on Monday? Lots of times in high school, depending upon the situation, teachers will work with you. Not with college applications. Those deadlines are hard and fast, okay? Really need to let students know that. Students have a Naviance account, guidance counselors have a Naviance account, as do teachers. And all three work together for this college application process. And again, talking about letters of recommendation that we'll kind of get into. Okay. So students that are in the crowd, you guys recognize this probably, logging on to Family Connection with your username and password. And you'll hit the Colleges tab. You can actually research colleges. You can set some parameters, okay, based on location, size, whereabouts, college majors, public versus private, co-ed versus single-sex schools, campus surroundings. And then it'll generate a list of schools. So there's thousands of schools, and it kind of narrows it down to kind of the parameters that you set. And it'll generate a list. And then you can take those schools that look like they might be a good fit for you, and we can put them under your individualized list for your son or daughter, under colleges I'm thinking about. Okay, and here we have a list of Kutztown, Lafayette, Moravian, and Penn State. And what's nice about this is it kind of lays out the admissions process for you, what the application deadlines are, how you would apply. Okay, you see those little, like it's almost like a little monitor there. There's an empty one at the top. That's considered an EDOC school. Okay, so with Kutztown, you would have to go onto their website and create an account. Your son or daughter would create an account, okay, with a username and password, and that's how they would apply, through the school's website. Okay. As far as regular decision, that's more in the summer. It's kind of like a rolling admissions. So again, as their class fills up, it becomes more and more competitive the longer you wait. So if there's rolling admission, you want to do that sooner rather than later. Lafayette College is a Common App school. Common App is a service that colleges use, over 700 colleges. A lot of students like that because they only have to do one essay. Okay, you enter your information in one time, your parent information, activities, things you're involved with, one time. All the schools use it, and there's actually a separate fee for each school, of course. Okay, the college application fees vary anywhere from $30 to $50 to $75 a school. So again, you want to keep that in mind. It can be pretty costly. Also, Moravian's a Common App school. And then Penn State, they have a little postage stamp. There are some schools still around where you have to mail all your supporting documents. Like we would have to mail the transcript, the letters of recommendation. But again, this is really a good way for your son or daughter to kind of manage their application deadlines. Okay? And once they've completed the high school transcript, we can also monitor, you know, where they've applied. It kind of gives you a list of schools. We've already sent the paperwork. There's kind of like an electronic stamp, so to speak, on what's left this high school. So lots of times I'll have seniors panic, like, hey, they don't have my transcript. I'm like, yes, they do. Don't worry. Let's go back. Let's take a look at your account. We sent it. And then lots of times when we make the phone call, they're like, oh, here it is. We have it. So again, there's a way to keep track. We also talked about letters of recommendation. Students will be doing that through Naviance, requesting a letter from two teachers, probably their junior year. They want to think about two teachers that know them pretty well, that can speak to their academic ability, their work ethic, their character. Those letters really carry a lot of weight, and it's important for students to kind of choose wisely. Sometimes students will go back if they've had a teacher freshman year and sophomore year, or maybe they've had a teacher as a freshman, and then they've had them again junior year, whether it's through coaching or maybe teaching like a history elective or something. There are situations like that. But typically, they'd want to look to a junior teacher, okay? And again, they would click on this, and then the teacher would get an email in their Naviance account, and it's really important for students to let the teacher know when they need their letter of recommendation by. Okay, we have these deadlines, like we said, that are hard and fast. Here in guidance, and certainly with teachers, might need a little bit more notice. We need like a 2-week turnaround to get those letters of recommendation done. Your son or daughter's guidance counselor does a letter of recommendation. We've had the good fortune of having your son or daughter for almost 4 years, so we know them pretty well. And again, we have colleges that kind of send us letters thanking us for those letters of recommendation, because lots of times your son and daughter looks the same on paper, okay, as other students. They have the same test scores, they have the same grades, maybe a similar transcript, but what sets them apart are those letters of recommendation. So again, really encourage kids, they need to ask in person, and they don't want to get to their third or fourth choice, okay? So if they wait too much time goes by or the teacher's inundated with requests. Some teachers have up to 40, 50 letters to do. And after that, they say, hey, listen, I've already got 50. I'm jammed. I really can't. So you really don't want that to be the experience your son or daughter has, okay? And again, applying to these colleges, you can certainly put them in for admissions information, and you can go on each individual school. They'll list whether they need test scores, like subject tests, SAT, ACT. And again, we can manage this whole application process online. Okay? Also, we talk about application deadlines. You notice there's like early decision, early action, priority, and regular decision. And the deadlines are different for each of those. Okay? Early decision, that's a binding decision. So if your son or daughter applies early decision, typically it's one school. I shouldn't say it is one school you can apply early decision to. Okay? You are 100% certain, your son or daughter, that is where I want to go. I've looked at several schools. I can't imagine being anywhere else. I've been wanting to go to Columbia since I've been in 9th grade. I've been there several times. And you would apply early decision. If you get in early decision, you have to rescind all your other applications, okay? Your decision's been made, it's a binding decision. Sometimes we caution students doing that because you really don't know what your financial aid package is gonna be. So again, that is, unless there's some financial mishap, you know, they kind of hold you to that. Another way to apply is early action. Early action, that kind of tells the school, you're one of my top 2 or 3 choices, but it's non-binding. Okay? Kids like early decisions sometimes because you find out much sooner. You would apply by, let's see, if we looked at BU, you apply by November 1st, and typically right before Christmas, you find out whether you've gotten in or not. Okay? Early action, also, those decisions or those deadlines are right around the same time. Sometimes there's a 2-week difference. We had that deadline moved one time with Hurricane Sandy. That was the only time. But again, sometimes kids will want to apply early action, and it's November 16th. It's too late, okay? It's too late. So again, really having those test scores in on time, the application in on time, the letters of recommendation, it's a major timing issue. So being organized and knowing what needs to go when is really, really important, okay? And then there's regular decision. A lot of students kind of want to hold back. They're not really sure. They haven't had a chance to do a lot of college visits. They don't really want to commit to something just yet. And sometimes they feel like, hey, my chances might be better getting in regular decision versus early action. Okay, it certainly depends on the school sometimes. And again, if you look on the left, we can kind of see how these applications are. Arizona State is an EDOC school, Boston, Bucknell, all Common App schools. You have a purple paper there with the Common App essay prompts. That's what those essays questions are linked to, the Common App account. So students will work on that. Juniors, you'll work on that over the summer and come in ready to roll by the time you're a senior with your essay prompt ready to go. That's what English classes will focus on once you get back. So also on Navient, you can look at admissions information, okay? Right now, this, I'm trying to think what school, this is Rutgers, and it says it's $11,000 a year. Okay, that's not true. If you look at the fine print where it says income, it says $0 to $30,000. Okay, so you can adjust the family income, and when you adjust it and go down, the price goes up. Okay, but again, some people are thrown up like, whoa, it's only, no. You got to move these little parameters here, up and down. Okay, but again, this is for each of the colleges that your son or daughter would have on their list. What's unique about this is this scattergram. Okay, this is, I'm trying to think what school this is for. I don't see it on there. But the green boxes are Voorhees kids that got in, okay? If you look at this, let's say, if, for example, this was Rutgers. If it was Rutgers, it would be covered with green boxes, but I'm just gonna say for the sake of conversation here, they're looking for a 3-point something GPA, maybe like a 3.6, and then they're looking for SAT scores a little over 1,300, okay? And again, your son or daughter, once we have their SAT scores or their PSAT scores, they're that little blue, see the top under the key where it says student? They would hover somewhere around there, okay? And once we see where your son or daughter is at, that gives us an idea whether it would be a good fit for them academically. We talk about different types of schools, whether it's a reach school or a realistic school or a probable school. We use that little key right there to kind of help us determine what's going to be a good fit. So the green boxes are Voorhees kids that got in. The X's were denied. And then some students were deferred. So that kind of gives you an idea. And there's one of these scattergrams for almost every school, for the most part. I shouldn't say every school. It depends whether our kids have applied there or not. But Rutgers, Bucknell, Columbia, NYU, a lot of schools in Delaware, Virginia, we have all this information. And again, that's over 10 years. So typically it's students that are, they're taking the same kind of classes your kids are taking as far as SAT scores as well. So we really use that. You can also adjust that to the ACT. Okay, that can also be moved at the top and kind of set a different parameter. So what is really important to kind of keep in mind is the academic planning. Okay, your son or daughter is here for 4 years. We do a guidance game plan. So when your son or daughter comes in as a freshman, we meet with them, and it's really important. I can't stress enough the relationship they have with their guidance counselor, getting to know us, kind of letting us in a little bit, and those are all things that kind of help us maybe steer them in the right direction, or we hear about an opportunity or something comes up, whether some students might be interested in doing something with physical therapy or occupational therapy, and then something comes up, something comes across the radar, and like, oh, you know what, I want to think of Mike for that. Or I'm thinking of, again, trying to get them to come in the door sometimes. We send them passes, but getting them to kind of come in on their own and drop in and let us know what's going on, or if they're having a hard time in a class, we're here to kind of support them. But again, we do this guidance game plan. We meet with them every year and kind of revise it and kind of say, hey, last year you were thinking about going to psychology. Oh, no. Now I want to go into marine biology. It's like, okay, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit. And we have other electives that we might want to steer them towards, or they were thinking about maybe engineering or maybe something with art. Okay, we have a lot of electives that they can take advantage of. And it's really good as freshmen and sophomores to kind of take those electives, try different things. Once you're junior, senior, we have you fairly well booked your freshman year and even your sophomore year, but then things kind of open up junior year to take those electives that maybe would help either rule something in or rule something out. That's really important to do. We just went through the course selection process on Aspen. That's an online program. Your son or daughter kind of registered for their classes online. We're really looking to kind of challenge them academically, but kind of keep that healthy balance. So if they're doing really well in an English class, colleges don't want to see your son or daughter kind of sit tight in an advanced English class and get straight A's. They'd rather see them kind of develop their struggle muscle a little bit, maybe try an honors level class, and see how they do. If they're really struggling in Spanish, we're going to probably do 2 years of a language, and then we're going to maybe decide to do something else. We're not going to keep doing honors Spanish 3 or kind of looking to push that route if that's really something where they're struggling. But again, if they have an affinity for a subject, whether it's history or they do really well in math, bump it up a notch, okay? Colleges want to see kind of where you start and then where you end up. Again, keeping that healthy balance, but kind of having that academic rigor. And that's where we kind of rely on teachers quite a bit to help us make those decisions, because they know kind of what's required at the next level, whether it's honors or AP, or even going from a CP to an advanced level course. Also, it's important with the 5 major academics: English, math, science, history, and foreign language. And then we try and get those electives to support what they're thinking about doing, whether it's engineering. Some students want to pursue teaching. We have childcare classes. Some students are thinking more about business. We have entrepreneurship and international business. We have business and sports management. That's a big one. Crime and justice, forensic science. Those are all electives that are open to your son or daughter as they go through high school. But again, keeping that healthy balance, because there's, you see kids under so much stress. And again, they're not going to do well academically if they're really stressed out emotionally. So kind of trying to find that balance is really, really important. And kind of keep that upward. So it's kind of a fine line we walk as parents, as guidance counselors, as teachers. Standardized testing. Okay, that's unfortunately a part of it. Some students do really well with these. Some students really struggle. But again, developing a plan, a calendar, okay? Typically, we actually this year we had freshmen, sophomores, and juniors take the PSATs. Your sons and daughters should have those scores along with a booklet with the answers, what their answers were, and again, it's on the back side. That's a really great resource to help them with the SATs. So if you haven't seen it yet, ask them. It's in their backpack. They got it during English class. They've had it for a while now. We have another copy in case they can't find it, so let us know. We can make you a copy. But that's a really great way to practice for the SAT. Also, create an account on College Board. In order to sign up for the SATs, you have to have an account on College Board. So your son or daughter needs to know how to do that. They need to create the password and log in, and that's where they'll sign up for the SAT. That's where they'll send their SAT scores. And again, there's lots of free practice, and I can't really stress that enough. Sometimes there's certain outside agencies, and it's $600, $700, $800 for test prep. There's a lot we do here. Certainly in their classes, we have free test prep after school on Mondays and Wednesdays. Mondays is math, and Wednesdays is the critical reading or the English piece. So again, they could bring their PSAT scores with them, sit down with Miss Tusa in math and say, hey, this is where I'm struggling. Something with geometry. I'm really having a hard time here. There's worksheets and packets she has devoted to that. She's been doing the test prep for quite some time. Mr. Crane does it for the critical reading and the English. If they need help with grammar or sentence structure, there's things we can do, and it's free. 2:30 to 3:10. They just have to show up. Okay? Also, they have, you can get an app on your phone. An SAT question of the day. When you're riding on the bus and coming in, you pull up that app and answer the question. And if you get it wrong, they kind of explain, hey, this is the correct answer because. And you start to see there's a method to the madness, and they will see this information again. I had a nephew that struggled, and he wanted to go to West Point, and he took the SATs the first time through and barely broke 1,000. So my sister was like, oh my gosh, there's no way he's going to West Point. But he did a major SAT prep and worked really hard, and he's brought a score up by a couple hundred points, and he's graduating in May. So again, some kids will say, I can't do these tests. They just need to put the time in, okay? And again, there is a method to the madness, and students have done well. If you don't put any time in, your scores aren't going to go up. But again, it's just that planning in 9th and 10th grade, junior year. If you do nothing, it's not going to really go up. But again, we're here to help you with that. So students will typically, juniors will take the SAT in the spring or the ACT. We have the new SAT now. It's debuted last March. So we're kind of finding a little bit more out about that. Some students want to take the ACT too, just as a backup. That's certainly something you can do. Colleges and universities will take either or. Some students, depending upon what classes you're in, if you're in higher level math classes, you will maybe be required to take the subject test. Some schools are looking for the subject tests. Those tests are probably about an hour long. And again, you want to take those probably in the spring once the course is finishing up. Some of the more competitive colleges do require a subject test, whether it's 1 or 2. There's over 20. But again, if they're in an honors bio or honors chemistry or AP Calc, sometimes students take them with pre-calc. Those are tests you'll have to sign up for as well in the spring. And again, the practice. And things do improve. We do have some students that no matter what, they've taken the test 2 or 3 times, they can't break 1,000, but they have like a 3.7 GPA or a 3.5 GPA. Sometimes that's really not a really good gauge, that 4-hour window of what kind of student you are. I know myself, back in the day, I was not a really good test taker. So there are test optional colleges, okay? They're not really looking for those scores. They want to know a little bit more about how they write. So sometimes they'll send a writing sample from an English class. And we don't even factor in the SAT or the ACT. That's not even part of the application process. There are a list of schools, and more are kind of leaning towards that, it seems like. So again, that's something else to kind of think about. And we have this is all the information on our guidance website as well. Extracurricular activities. You all with me? I feel like I'm going really fast. Everybody okay? Okay, I'm not gonna lose anybody? Good. Extracurricular, 9th and 10th grade, really encourage you guys to try different clubs and activities. We have a ton of things to get involved with. And there's clubs after school, there's sports. We have a new one that just started, this unified sports. It's working with special needs kids, and we just had an awesome game. I don't know if anybody got a chance to go. It was great, wasn't it? We have a lot of kids that are involved with that. They do unified leadership, which is a class during the day. Because maybe they want to be teachers, or they want to go into special ed, or they're just awesome kids and they really enjoy working with this population. Those are all considered kind of extracurricular. We need help to run these programs. So again, that's something to think about. Summer programs, employment, those are all things that really speak to students' work ethic and dedication. Some kids have had a job at ShopRite for 2 or 3 years. They don't really do much as far as clubs and activities and sports, but they have a job. They babysit. They take care of an elderly grandparent. Those are all things we would really build up once we're doing their application. Colleges want to know, you're off for 10 weeks in the summer. 10 weeks. What do you do? What do you do with your time? I have one kid that's like, I just kind of play video games. I'm like, ooh, okay, we gotta fix that. Okay, there's lots of things to get involved with. Some students take missions trips. Some students volunteer. Some students get involved with our feeder programs for like Hunterdon Hawks or Huskies, where they do the running, the track, the sports. Those are all things that really help. And you want to log it all, because colleges are going to ask you how many hours per week and how many weeks per year do you do this type of thing, okay? And they can kind of see right through. Sometimes they'll have kids turn in like a resume, it's like this thick. And I look at it and it's like, well, I flip pancakes for 2 hours, then I washed cars for 3 hours, then I, coached whatever, then, it's like 80 bazillion things, and they are spread so thin. I really would caution you not to do that. So in 9th and 10th grade, you're kind of figuring out what you like and what you might really be passionate about. And then you want to spend more time doing those things your junior and senior year. I had a student that was the valedictorian of the class. She spent all of her time at Littlebrook Nursing Home. That's what she wanted to do. She was going into gerontology, and she ended up kind of running little committees and had other high school students get involved and really kind of took a leadership role there. And they were so sad to see her leave. But again, she didn't do a lot of stuff. She just really devoted a ton of time to one activity. So freshman and sophomore year, really try different clubs and activities that we have. And then junior and senior year, you want to maybe narrow it down to 2 or 3 things, maybe something you feel passionate about. We have something on our website as far as opportunities for summer things. Clubs are always looking for new people, okay? We just started like an ocean, I forget the name of the club. Anna, do you know the club that Miss Luckhart started? Ocean Conservation Club. Someone kind of said, hey, marine biology is a big major for kids these days. So someone just started a club, I think this year. So we have a lot of students joining that. And maybe you're involved as a freshman and sophomore, but then when you're a junior and senior, hey, you want to be the president, or I'm going to be the vice president or secretary, okay? So those are all things to kind of think about. And lots of times these extracurricular activities factor into scholarships, okay, and into admissions, because they want to know, they're looking for a well-rounded student body, okay? And again, what can you contribute once you get there? So again, kind of stepping outside your comfort zone a little bit and trying different things is really, really important. Okay. College visits. Okay, it's really important. This was another one I took my daughter when she was a senior, and we left at 5 in the morning one time, and we drove to a school down in Virginia, and we left at, like I said, 5. We got in maybe around 8:39. We pulled up. She's like, I don't like it. I said, Catherine, get out. We just drove, but again, she didn't like the town. Driving through, it just didn't feel right to her. And I really could see, hey, this really isn't a good fit for you either. She went to a big high school right over, and she went to Easton High School, so it's like 600 or 700 kids in her class, and this was a small school. And we got out, and we could stand at one end and see the other end of the campus. And she's like, Mom, this is way too small. This is way, I'm like, okay. So at least, we got a lot of time. It was kind of fun too, because you'll see as you do these trips with your kids, you get that time in the car alone with them, and it's really kind of nice because it's just, you have them as their captive audience, and it's kind of really neat time you have to spend together. Because I remember focusing on, oh, this is the last soccer game, or the last this, or the last, and there is a little bit of a bittersweet, some parents are like, can't wait till they leave, I want them out. And there is some of that, but then there's also like, they're going off to this whole new thing that you won't be a part of really. So it's great to kind of take these trips with them and help them kind of rule things in and rule things out. For a lot of students, it's a feeling thing, okay? They all look awesome online, and you kind of see the highlights of all these campuses, but then when you go there and you start to walk around, and as a parent, you can kind of step back and you can kind of see your son or daughter, do they fit, is this a good fit for them? And for students, can you see yourself on campus? Can you see yourself in this dining hall? Can you see yourself does it feel like a good fit? And hard to kind of rule. It's just really a feeling thing, and I can't really describe it any other way, but you'll know it when you're there. Let's see. So we talked about developing a healthy list of schools. 7 to 12, okay, is kind of a good list. I have some students this year that applied to maybe 20-some schools. I'm not kidding. That's pretty pricey, all those application fees. And she kind of said, hey, I'm going to apply to all these schools, see where I get in, and then I'm going to go visit. I have other students say, hey, you know what, I want to visit first, and then I'm going to apply. So whatever works for you and your family, again, you really want to develop some realistic schools, okay? And we talked about those scattergrams where your son or daughter would fit in. So you want to kind of be in that range where with your PSAT scores and your GPA, you kind of are right in the center there. That would be considered a realistic school. A probable school is if you exceed those averages. You have a higher GPA, a higher SAT or ACT score, and there's no such thing as a safety school anymore, unfortunately. And then we also have a reach school or a dream school where you kind of fall short. My first year in guidance, I had a student, he applied to maybe 4 or 5 schools, and we kept hearing he didn't get into the reach one, didn't get into the probable one, and I'm like, oh, the only one left was the reach. And his mom called me and said, what are we gonna do? I go, we gotta do plan B. I'm panicking. I thought these were safe schools, and he ended up getting in. It was his letter of recommendation, I think, that really helped. He got a letter of recommendation from a teacher here who was a coach, and his student was also an alumni of a particular university. So I really think that kind of helped push him over the edge, and he just graduated and is doing phenomenal. So again, you know, you never know. So I'm always telling kids, hey, don't sell yourself short. You know, who knows? There could be something unique in your application where you stand out that, you know what, this is going to be a really good fit for you. So again, you want to have a couple of dream schools or reach schools, and then 3 or 4 probable, and 3 or 4 realistic. And we use those scattergrams to kind of help us determine what's going to be a good fit for that. Okay, and what school should I visit? Okay, we talked about ones that are a good fit, okay, where you're going to be successful academically, okay, you're going to be challenged, you're going to be happy, and your parents can afford financially, and there's a good return on investment, okay? Typically, if you're looking to go to a dream school and hopefully get some merit money or financial aid, that's not going to happen. A lot of that money goes to the students that are on the top of the applicant pool. So your chances for getting money are probably more at the probable schools, okay, where you are kind of at the top versus a reach school. Those are things to think about. And again, some students want to go for sports and they're playing baseball or they're playing football. Well, if you got injured, you know, would you still want to be there? Is that still going to be a good fit for you? Sometimes you can't really let sports just kind of be the only sole factor in kind of making your decision. So we allow you here at the high school to take college visits as juniors, and they're excused prior. However, you need to kind of turn this form in 3 days prior to going, okay? And it will be considered an excused absence. You can pick them up in guidance. And again, we'd like you to try and do this 3 days so we kind of have a heads up, your teachers have a heads up. And then you need to bring documentation back that says you were there. It's got to have the date on it, okay? And like I said, we have these forms, they're on our website, and it will be considered an excused absence. Some students kind of travel, like head south. I have one student that's going to Florida. So we do allow travel time, we understand, but if you can kind of look at the calendar, the school calendar, and look at your work calendar and kind of organize that so we can maybe, you know, certainly not miss too many days of school, but we do understand there's travel involved sometimes when parents take these trips. So that's certainly something to consider. So when you go to these visits, really important to go maybe during when school's in session. So our spring break is a perfect time because schools are still in session until probably early May. That's a really great time to go. And also teacher convention days. They get hit really hard in New Jersey, so sometimes if you want to head south or north, you might have a better chance. Those campus tours book very quickly because the whole state is off. And again, once those, you would kind of register online for those campus tours. And those are really important too. Some schools really like to see that you've made the effort. I know Lehigh is a big school with that. It's called demonstrated interest, that you've taken the time, you've shown up, you've logged in, you are walking around the campus, you're interacting with the admissions staff there. They like to see that. And if you go back a second time, you know, that really shows, you know what, this student's really interested in this. So when you go to apply, they do note, hey, they've been here twice. And they've also set up an interview with a student. Lehigh does do interviews, Lafayette does interviews. Those are some you know, close campuses we can help you with. But again, you want to register for the tour and complete a card because they do keep track of that. Take a detour, you know, when you're walking around the college campus, go into the dorms, go into the D Hall, the bookstore, the athletic facilities, Get a copy of the school newspaper, kind of gives you a feel for what the campus is like. Check out posters and flyers on the bulletin boards. Those are also pretty informative. And again, you also want to follow up students, not parents, students with a thank you note. Hey, appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Enjoyed chatting with you. I'll be in touch or something. We do have college visits. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Through Naviance, where they're actually now this year for the first time we had admissions counselors come to Voorhees High School. We've had several schools, Rutgers, Bucknell, there's a whole list. And again, if your son or daughter has that list on colleges I'm thinking about, they will get an email from me if I'm their guidance counselor and Naviance saying, hey, during mods 11, 12, someone from Rutgers is coming, or someone from James Madison is coming. And again, they come and we have 6, 7, 8 kids, and it's kind of almost close to like a one-to-one with an admissions counselor. They take their card, they follow up, thanks so much, I appreciate your time, and that's kind of the rep for our area. So again, I talk to those people quite a bit. Let's see, anything else? So the application process actually kind of kicks in junior year, okay? You want to check college requirements. We talked about those subject tests, we talked about SAT scores. Sometimes colleges will say what's recommended versus what's required. So, we require 2 years of a language, but they sometimes like to see 3. Or we require 3 years of a lab science, but they like to see, with language too sometimes. That's another one. So again, check those. Those are on the college website. You have to send those test scores through College Board, and that takes sometimes about 18 to 21 days. So just because it's electronic, don't think it's going to be there right away. It takes some time. And then the student has to do the application, whether it's a Common App or the eDoc. And the SAP also is there. So just to kind of recap, students are responsible for the application and the test scores, okay? And they're also responsible for turning in the high school transcript release form to guidance. And then we, in turn, send the transcript and we send the letters of recommendation. Okay, the high school transcript. So juniors, it's really important that you finish strong because this is the last opportunity you have to show the colleges your grades. Okay, you're going to have a GPA at the end of junior year, and that is the GPA that goes out to colleges. We have a cumulative GPA. So in 9th grade, you get a GPA, and it rolls over again at the end of 10th grade. I have a lot of kids come and say, what's my GPA now after second marking period? I'm like, we don't do it that way. We can talk at the end of sophomore year. And sometimes getting that thing to move can be tough. So we really want kids to kind of start out strong, right? And really work hard. But again, at the end of junior year, you'll get a transcript, okay, that lists your classes from freshman, sophomore, and junior year. There's no report cards. It's just 1 grade for English, 1 grade for math, okay, with the number of credits they've earned. But what's also on there are their courses for senior year, okay? So again, they want to see, hey, this is what they've got at the end of junior year. What are they doing the following year, okay? And it's really important that students keep up that academic rigor because, again, it used to be where, hey, we would kind of do freshman, sophomore, junior, then I would kind of slide and kind of roll into senior year and get senioritis kind of mid-October, November. Those days are over, okay? Kids should really finish strong. And again, as a senior, you only have to take English and phys ed and health. And then it's more about what you'd like to take. So we really encourage students to try those other courses, try some different kind of electives, challenge themselves academically. And again, that high school transcript goes out along with our secondary school profile. That talks about Voorhees High School. And we have a lot of people that come here, college admissions, because they like kids from Voorhees High School. They do really well. So basically, that transcript is accompanied by the secondary school report, which says, this is what Voorhees High School has to offer, and then your transcript shows what you took advantage of, okay? So again, those 2 pieces go out in addition to the letters of recommendation. So we're looking for juniors to kind of give us a really good, healthy junior questionnaire. We're coming into the bio classes next week, I think. So the junior questionnaire, students fill this out, and with activities they've been involved with, sometimes there's stuff outside of school that we're not aware of. But we also give parents an opportunity to kind of, it's called a parent brag sheet, but again, sometimes you certainly know your son or daughter best, and there's certain things you know about them, maybe certain challenges they've faced that maybe we're not aware of here at the high school, or maybe something they really, I don't know, they don't think is really a big deal, but as their parent, hey, that is a huge deal. Again, this information we'd like to share with the colleges, and we as guidance counselors will put that on their letter of recommendation and kind of incorporate those things. But again, really stressing about the deadlines, that they are really, really important. So we have the transcript release form, okay? It's a little green half sheet, looks like this. It's on our guidance website. And again, we need to fill these out, one per school. If your son or daughter is 18, they can sign away themselves. Otherwise, we need a parent signature. And sometimes we get forced ones because they're under a deadline and they don't want to take it back, and we've got like a 2-week window and they're already a day or two late, so sometimes they'll forge your signature. But again, ask to see these. It's really important that they're filled out correctly. Sometimes we'll have kids come in and they haven't checked off the Common App and they haven't checked off the eDoc. So I said, hey, I need to know how you're applying. Let's look at your Common App account. And they'll go, I don't know my password. Let me call my mom. I'm like, oh, not a good sign. You need to know how to log into your Common App account. You need to know how to log into these schools, okay? And again, how you're applying. Is it early decision? Is it early action? Those are all things that are really important to know. And again, what the deadline for the school is, okay? And again, we really need that 2-week turnaround to get these things cranked out, because we have 40, 50, 60 seniors that are applying to colleges kind of all at the same time. So the sooner they start, the better. And getting this paperwork in. How am I paying for college? Again, we talked about that in the very beginning, because that's really important to have that conversation with your son or daughter. So everyone's going to be filling out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. And when you log on, you can go on their website. You really want to go on the .gov one. That's the legit one. There's like .com, .org, .whatever. They're going to ask for money. The .gov is the legitimate one, okay? So again, really remember to kind of type that in at the end. And that used to be January 1. It had to be filled out by January 1 of their senior year. Well, now they rolled that back. And now it's October of their senior year. And again, they used their 2015 taxes. So again, you'll have to have all this documentation with you when you go to do that. But we devote a whole night to this coming up in November. So again, the CSS profile, that's something, it's much more in depth. Some colleges also recommend that, and they really look at everything. They look at mortgage paperwork, they look at benefits, they look at bank statements for you, for your son, for your daughter, they look at car loans, they look at everything. It's much more detailed. Also, you can go online, there's College Board calculators, you can enter some numbers in and it'll crank out kind of an estimated family contribution, give you an idea of what you might have to pay. And again, I really can't stress enough, just come fall when we have that night. We'll email you. Ms. Magala will send out an email. We'll try and send one out from guidance. It's an important night to come and answer those questions. Also, nowadays with students, online behavior is really important. There are some colleges that really look into that, okay? 26% check Facebook, 35% report finding information that negatively impacted acceptance to their college. Really trying to let kids know that kind of what they do online follows them, and it's out there for quite some time, forever. Watch your online behavior. Detag yourself from any questionable photos or content. And we talk about like the grandparent test. I'll say to students, hey, if your grandparent would see this, how would they react? Like, oh, she wouldn't like that. So hey, take it down. Okay, and maybe post positive content that illustrates your interest and your strengths. Again, so we talk a lot here at the high school about being academically ready. I think our kids are oftentimes in really good shape heading out the door. They're ready academically, but are they ready emotionally? And that's another piece, having had 2 kids through college. Sometimes when they're juniors and seniors, they're kind of at the top of the heap. They feel really good about where they're at and what they're doing. They kind of finally feel like they've arrived a little bit, and then bam, and they're out the door and they hit college. And some of these students really are not prepared emotionally. They struggle. They wish more emphasis was placed on being ready emotionally versus academically. And I'm kind of thinking what that looks like a little bit. I know from my kids, being able to advocate for themselves. If they take their first college test and get an F, are they going to know what to do? Are they going to curl up and go, oh my gosh, I need to go home? That's going to happen. It's going to happen because it's a whole different ballgame. There's a little bit of a learning curve there. So that's why we encourage kids to really ask for help. That is such a healthy thing to do. It's such a good thing to do. But once they go off to college, are they able to do that for themselves? And the pressure that they're feeling. Like I said, when I went to back to school night when my son was a senior, I overheard parents talking about how, gosh, my daughter's so cranky. I'm like, oh God, I had such a sense of relief because I was like, my son's feeling the same way. And we don't realize how much pressure they're under, okay? And kids are talking about it here, and then I think certainly as parents, I mean, I've been out to barbecues or whatever, and parents are talking about it, and it gets me kind of ramped up, and then they get ramped up, and it's just a bad combination. So there's a lot of pressure. And whatever we can do to kind of bring that down, that's really what we would like to focus on in guidance. And again, the importance of starting early. And again, first year colleges, 50% said they felt stress most or all of the time. That's a biggie in going off to college, just that academic stress, that social stress. And how do they handle that? 36% did not feel they were in control of managing the day-to-day stress of college life, okay? I've had parents that have said, hey, we went on a college admissions trip and my son wouldn't even go up to the counter to ask, to sign in. I'm like, that's a problem, okay? You can't be going up for them doing that. That's kind of a red flag right there that maybe, they might not be ready, okay? Some kids, they just want to get as far away from home as possible. Other kids are, they want to maybe doing a community college and working. There's no way you have to do this. It's going to be what's best. And I often tell kids, hey, don't listen to what everybody else is doing. We're focusing on you and what's going to work for you, okay? Major factors in student success: ability to take care of oneself. I remember going to these, when you go to college and they kind of doing their sheets, do they know to wash their sheets? It's like, I don't know, I hope so. So those are little things as, do they do their laundry? Do they kind of know how to kind of take care of themselves? If they're stressed, they know the importance of sleep and eating healthy and adapting to new environments. Are they gonna go out there and be a part of those things? Because college really does a great job of kind of drawing people out. Or are you gonna wanna say, no, I'm gonna stay here, I don't really wanna go. Controlling negative emotions, the stress and being homesick. Some kids, maybe it's not good for them to kind of head down to Florida when they have a hard time spending the night at a girlfriend's house for the night. They might not be ready to go off and make that leap just yet. And building positive relationships, can they seek that out? And being with people that are going to build them up and make them feel good about who they are and where they're at. Okay. Let's see, upcoming events. So right now we are in the throes of junior parent meetings right now with our counselees. So you may have gotten an email, you probably did get an email. It's still not too late to reach out to your son or daughter's guidance counselor if you have a junior. And we kind of sit and spend about a half an hour, 45 minutes going over where you're at in the process. We have a career fair for 10th graders this spring. Certainly juniors can go if there's still something you might want to think about. I've had students that maybe have gotten summer opportunities at a career fair. Okay, and again, those soft skills that we don't teach, but eye contact, a good handshake, being personable, those are all things sometimes that kids really don't realize they have that in spades, and that's so important. You have kids that are really good academically, but they can't go up and kind of start a conversation or hold a conversation with an adult. Those are all things you kind of have to work on. I had a couple students that worked for a vet over the summer because they met up with him at our career fair and they ended up striking up a conversation, and they had a job for the summer, not paid certainly, but kind of just job shadowing, which I think is really important. We also have college fairs coming up in the fall. We have one during the day, and then we have one at night for parents to come with their son or daughter. But again, going up, talking to a college admissions officer, getting their name, kind of shooting them an email, really important. And then I spoke a little bit about the visits from admissions counselors. Again, we have those through Navient. So if we have UNC Wilmington come and that's on your son or daughter's list, they'll get an email and they can miss class and come and sit and sometimes have a one-on-one. Sometimes it's 4 or 5 students to an admissions counselor and get a chance to kind of make a neat connection that way. And again, how can we help? We're almost done. We can help them with essay topics. We can help them with college interviews and visits, developing a resume, kind of helping pick those reach and target schools, scholarship things, 4-year planning, extracurricular activities. There's so much to this job, and that's why I really like it. It's just one way, there's certain things that kind of come across the radar and this kid would be perfect for that. So again, we really work hard here, and I feel we do a really good job getting our students ready and getting them kind of halfway out the door. But we need to work with you all as well, and it's really important that we kind of have that working relationship. So if I have some parents say, hey, can I call you, and please don't tell my son that I'm calling, but can you pull him in and ask him if he registered for the SAT? I'm like, yeah, we can absolutely do that, okay? But again, as much as I can caution you not to it's so easy to want to get it done, and I'll just do it myself, but it really kind of sends a message to your kid that, you really can't do this, and I don't think you can do it, and I don't know if you will do it, so I'm going to do it for you. And it kind of just, it's self-defeating, and it kind of kind of makes them a little lack confidence, like, hey, maybe I can't do this, maybe I'm not ready. When certainly, even if I've had times with my own kids, like, I don't know if they can do something, I'm like, you got it, I know you got it. I'm like, oh God, I hope they got it, you know? So as parents, sometimes you walk that line. So again, we are here to help, and it's important to kind of stay positive and ask for help. And hopefully you all will see us as resources here in this whole process. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them. I know if anybody wants to swing by the other financial aid night, I think they're there till 8:30, so feel free. Also, before you go, you have one of these cards. And again, we have some students that are here, and actually to you students that did show up, kudos to you guys, because you're going to be kind of a little bit ahead of the game. But if you want to take a minute and just write a little note to your son or daughter, and we'll get this to them during their homeroom. We've done this a couple years ago at back to school night, and some parents really enjoyed it. Believe it or not, you're the most important influence in their life. And sometimes you think, they don't really need me now. They're really busy. They're off doing their thing. They need you now more than ever. I really can't stress that enough. So if you want to take a minute just to jot them a little note, doesn't have to be anything too personal. And we can certainly drop it in their homeroom, and it's kind of a neat little keeper, and some kids kind of have it saved somewhere special. So any questions about the college process? Again, the financial aid piece, I really can't help you with. Yes?
You said 2 teacher recommendations.
Yes.
Then there was another slide you had. It said 3 to 4 recommendations. Is that from other?
Great question. Okay, the question was about 2 to 3, and then I had a slide that said 3 to 4. So their guidance counselor, we will do one. Couple of teachers, and then some students also have an activity that they're involved in outside of school. They're involved in Scouts or Girl Scouts. That's another biggie as far as extracurricular too. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts. Some students have an employer they've been working for 2 or 3 years, or a babysitter. That's also a letter of recommendation, but you have to send that on your own. That can't be a part of the electronic process. But again, some schools will take 1 letter of recommendation. Some take none. Like Rutgers, they take 0 letters. Some schools will take up to 4 or 5. That's a great question. No. So yeah, you can do that. But if that's something, Dara, we would talk after, and I would tell you how to get that out. Okay? Yes. That's how do you know which colleges take AP classes? Some schools won't take the AP classes unless you get a 4 or 5. Okay, that's very school specific. So those would be conversations you would have when you go to visit. You can even call the admissions office and find out about that. Some students, if they're doing like an engineering program, they really want you to do all of their curriculum, all their coursework. So sometimes the AP class will count towards something else. There's like gen ed requirements, so that'll count towards that, but you still have to take this advanced physics level class or something if you're going into a particular major. Okay, again, it's very school specific. Some will take a 3 or a 4, some will only take 5s. So again, it depends on the school. You have to kind of do your research and put the phone call out. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, I hope your stress level is going down a little bit, and we know that we are here to help you and support you. Okay, thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sure.